Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Our top story, former President Trump vowing an over 60% tariff on China if he gets reelected. More on what the penalty could mean for the global economy.
Look, it's not sustainable for this country to lose $500 billion a year.
140,000 comments attached to a Chinese social media post about giraffe conservation. A post from the U.S. Embassy in Beijing becoming a wailing wall for complaints about plunging Chinese stocks. Beyond concerning stocks, photos and video reveal the depths of China's struggling businesses. The busiest shopping centers now virtually empty. We look at why. And Australia is condemning China after the communist regime handed out a suspended death penalty to an Australian pro-democracy blogger. What we know about the verdict. A bold statement from former President Trump. In an interview with Fox News on Sunday, he pledged he would put an over 60% tariff on Chinese goods if he wins a second term. Watch this.
Now the Washington Post is saying that you're talking about 60% tariffs on Chinese goods. Is that in the cards?
No, I would say maybe it's going to be more than that, because we're going to have, look, I want China to do great. I do. And I like President Xi a lot. He was a very good friend of mine during my term.
Well, look, COVID cover-up, intellectual property
when
theft.
COVID came,
the list is
different.
long from our number one adversary, so I don't know if he's a friend.
No, but I got along with him great. I'm not sure he loved what I was doing because I was, getting along with him.
I don't think he wants you in the White House, Mr. President.
No, he doesn't. The market almost crashed when I won Iowa and New Hampshire. The market went down tremendously.
Trump is the Republican frontrunner. If the plan goes through, it could have major impacts on global economies. Trump slapped tariffs on hundreds of billions of dollars worth of Chinese imports in 2018. He later raised that tariff to 25%. At the time, the U.S. was importing more from China than it was selling. The trade deficit between them stood at over $400 billion in China's favor.
Look. It's not sustainable for this country to lose $500 billion a year.
Trump used tariffs to pressure China into buying more American goods. The two countries ended up signing a trade deal. Under it, Beijing agreed to buy over $200 billion in U.S. goods. Trump has also suggested he could impose a 10% tariff on almost all imports. Tariffs aside, the former president was also asked if he believes China would interfere in the 2024 election.
I think they will, and they won't be interfering on my behalf. We should go same-day voting, paper ballots, voter ID, and no mail-in ballots.
Would you try to stop China from taking over Taiwan? What would you do if they went into Taiwan?
I won't tell you now because that would really jeopardize my negotiating ability with China. So I don't talk about those things.
The Chinese Communist Party claims Taiwan as part of China, despite never having ruled it. Washington declines to say whether it would come to Taiwan's defense if China launched an invasion. Though President Biden has repeatedly said the U.S. would get involved in case of a war. The White House walked back those statements afterward, saying the U.S. policy of strategic ambiguity hasn't changed. To talk more about Trump's staggering 60% China tariff proposal, we sat down with Corr, publisher at the Journal of Political Risk. He's also the principal of Corr Analytics. Now, Trump is saying that he could impose 60% or higher tariffs on China if he does get reelected. What kind of impact would that have on China's economy?
Even the threat of that is having an impact. Stocks are doing very badly in China over the last week. And part of that is because they're worried about a second Trump term, which would be probably quite a bit tougher on China than the first Trump term. I think we've all learned some lessons in the past, and I think Trump would be quite a bit tougher going forward.
Now, how likely is Trump to actually put this into practice if he gets reelected, or is this just talk?
I think he's quite likely to do something. One of the other slightly more moderate proposals is to remove China's most favored nation status, trade status. That would actually increase tariffs on China up to 40%. This is sort of his strategy. He'll praise Xi Jinping on the one hand as a person, but then he'll threaten 60% tariffs on the other hand, and he'll try to use those that double-fisted strategy, if you will, to get some major concessions from China.
Now, given these talks of tariffs, and if they were to put that into practice, how would that help the U.S. in terms of U.S.-China relations? Would that give the U.S. the upper hand?
The threat of tariffs certainly gives the U.S. the upper hand in terms of negotiations. China exports a lot more to the United States than obviously we export to China. So our threats of tariffs on them have a greater impact, a greater threat to China than their tariffs on us, because we export less to them. So it impacts us less. It does impact prices, but that impact can be relatively low compared to things like inflation. It's important to try to decouple from China because of the China threat, but I also think that the U.S. should insist and influence our allies to do the same. We can't increase our tariffs unilaterally. I mean, we can increase our tariffs unilaterally, but it might make our exports less competitive. So we need to really strongly encourage our allies to do the same.
Anders, Corr, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Next, a roundup of short economic updates from inside China. First, Chinese stocks tumbled to a 5-year low on Monday after regulators vowed to pull the dwindling market back towards stability. Throughout the day, shares in markets like Shenzhen and Shanghai have been toggling between big losses and small gains. Beijing's state-backed investors are trying to prop up the sluggish economy with investments. But analysts say that a full rebound in consumer confidence still appears unlikely. That's as long as the nation's housing sector stays weak. Alongside those issues, Beijing is boasting about its self-reported 5.2% GDP growth last year. But calculations from a Japanese financial commentator suggest a different picture. According to a report by Tamura Hideo, China's 2023 economy not only grew less than it claimed, it actually shrunk. The estimate centers around real estate, net exports, and household consumption. Real estate drives China's economic growth. Tamura said that the decline of the housing sector, along with its related industries, may have single-handedly erased 5% of the total growth. And all things considered, he concluded that China's overall GDP last year may have plummeted by over 2%, with counting inflation. People in China are also feeling the downturn.
If there is indeed such significant economic growth, why are there so many issues like unemployment, debt, fiscal problems, and financial issues? Therefore, discussing economic data at the moment is really unreliable because there is no accurate and trustworthy economic data available for people to analyze and interpret.
Tamura also called on Japanese companies to withdraw cash flow from China. He noted that the regime's suppression of information can only increase investment risks in the country. The Chinese market is bracing against yet another blow, with stock prices plunging in recent days. To voice their anger, Chinese people are flocking to an unexpected part of social media, the official Weibo account of the U.S. Embassy in Beijing. NTD's Dave Martin has more.
Weibo is China's most popular microblogging site, often billed as the country's version of X. And lately, 140,000 comments have been glued onto a Friday post made by the American Embassy in Beijing. The post focused on the conservation of wild giraffes, but the comments zeroed in on economic woes. Here are a few of them. One user wrote, "We know they are lying. They know they are lying. They know that we know they are lying. And we also know that they know we know they are lying. But they are still lying. Could you tell me which prosperous country the above statement describes?" Another added, "Do you want to protect me too? Giraffes are life, so am I." While one of the over 15,000 reposts asks the embassy, quote, "Could you spare us some missiles to bomb away the Shanghai Stock Exchange?" The post was later deleted, and users turned their attention towards the Weibo of the Indian embassy in China, with some leaving comments like, "I'm so envious of the Indian Stock Exchange. It's amazing. And great country, great financial market. Thumbs up to you." Others praised Indian Prime Minister Modi. Some users reported that their Weibo accounts and other linked social media accounts had been blocked after leaving the comments. Chinese authorities regularly censor Weibo posts they view as negative when they gain traction. This is Dave Martin for NTD News.
Back inside China, major cities like Beijing, Shanghai, Shenzhen, and Guangzhou were once home to some of the country's busiest streets. Now they're showing scenes of a depression. Residents say they are shocked by what they're seeing. Take a look.
太吓人了，都关门了。真的是太夸张了，晚上就出来吃个饭，发现这一排街铺都空了。你看这一。
现在广州各大商场都是这样子了吗？今天在融创茂这边，整个商场都没几个人。
This video was filmed at Sanlitun. The area is filled with upscale restaurants and bars, but now it's struggling to attract tourists. In another video, a shop owner said her store in Shanghai was only able to survive for about 3 weeks. Then she had to shut it down. Zooming out to the nationwide economy, China's unemployment rate is rising, and consumer sentiment is at a historic low. Some China residents told NTD that they would only buy essentials, cutting out luxuries. Others explain their businesses in China have become hard to keep afloat. More are complaining about payroll delays, with many others facing layoffs. Meaning for many workers in the country, the upcoming New Year of the Dragon may prove to be a tough one. Beijing handing a suspended death sentence to Australian citizen Yang Henjun. Here's what Australian Foreign Minister Penny Wong said on Monday.
We understand that this can be commuted to a life sentence following 2 years. The Australian government is appalled at this outcome. We will be communicating our response in the strongest terms.
Wang said she summoned China's ambassador to Australia. Authorities detained Yang in 2019 when he went to visit his family in China. Before that, he was working in New York and regularly posted comments critical of Beijing on X. Yang had over 130,000 followers on the platform. Beijing later charged him with espionage. Yang denies the accusations. Officials didn't give details on his charges. He had a closed-door trial in 2021. Australian diplomats were denied entry. Last year, Yang told his family that he fears he would die in detention. That's after he was diagnosed with a kidney cyst. Human Rights Watch called Yang's sentence a setback for China-Australia relations.
I mean, it seemed like the Australia-China relationship was getting back onto a more stable, secure footing. But I think it's hard to see how the relationship can improve if one party is committing acts of arbitrary detention against another.
The risk of arbitrary detention in China extends to many more foreign nationals. Based on a list of Americans currently detained by Beijing, American businessman Mark Swiden is currently on death row with a suspended death sentence. Swiden was arrested in China over a decade ago on drug-related charges. He's been held in prison since then. Then there's American pastor David Lin. Lin is originally from China and became a Christian after coming to the U.S. He later went back to China. Lin was active with house church activities there and was arrested. He's said to be released in 2030. Another is Li Kai, a naturalized U.S. citizen born in China. He was detained on a 2016 visit to relatives in Shanghai and is now serving a 10-year prison sentence for espionage. Just this May, China sentenced a 78-year-old American citizen to life in prison on spying charges. China did not give details. The State Department has warned Americans to reconsider travel to China. Next, we'd like to take a moment to share some of your comments about last Friday's show. Pundit King wrote, if they put lead paint on kids' toys, why would you be shocked seeing it in counterfeit goods? He was referring to our report on South Korea, where authorities recently found dangerously high levels of cancer-causing metals in counterfeit Chinese goods. Those products include fake earrings and leather bags claiming to be Chanel, Dior, and Louis Vuitton. Number Toy 11 said the news didn't come as a surprise and that they were shocked when a French expert said less than 0.5% of food imports produced in China is inspected based on North American or European food inspection standards. Don't forget to tell us what you think of today's show, or if you have an idea for something you'd like to see us cover, send us an email at chinainfocus@ntd.com. That's all for today's China in Focus on YouTube. We're now sharing a shortened version of our program here after being demonetized for more than 3 years. If you'd like to support us, consider donating. Find us at donorbox.org/China-in-focus or subscribe to our partner platform Epic TV, where you can watch our full episodes. Here's what to look out for in our second half. Washington's closest ally in Asia, Tokyo, is trying to deliver a message to former president and GOP frontrunner Donald Trump. What's behind the urgent request? How many marijuana farms in America are linked to members of the Chinese Communist Party? 50 Washington lawmakers pressing the U.S. Attorney General for answers. And a country singer gets flagged after promoting his music on TikTok. What triggered the social media app to act? More on his story after the break here on China in Focus. Thanks for watching China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. See you tomorrow.